Hey folks, it's me, Mickey Mouse, and you're listening to the Thodcast. Hot diggity dog!
Hey, and welcome to episode 15 of the Thodcast, where I am joined by my brother Dawson Elke. I am Philip Elke, your host of the Thodcast, conversations about animation. How's it going, Dawson?
Hey, it's going good. Happy to be here and conversate about animation.
Yes, let's...
Yeah, because animation is my strong suit. I plugged in my new Wacom tablet to my laptop. I started drawing a stick figure, and it went dung. Not
Is that
enough
how you
RAM.
pronounce it?
Wait, that's what I say. Whack-em, like
Wacom.
whack-a-mole. I don't
I
care
don't
if that's not how you say it. That's how I'm gonna say it.
All right, that's fair.
I'm gonna whack 'em.
The Annie Awards were last weekend, Dawson. Did you know that?
I should have if I'm a host of an animation podcast.
Well, no. It's
I did
okay.
not. There's always awards shows going on in LA. There's too much
Yeah.
back
Yeah. Well, today we are talking about a movie that was featured in the Annie Awards, but did not win the Best Animated Feature. That
Really?
went to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh boy. And that's probably my guess is that'll snag the Oscar too.
It's probably a good chance. The nominees for Best Animated Feature at the 2019 Annie Awards were Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Early Man, Incredibles 2, Isle of Dogs, and Ralph Breaks the Internet. The movie Mirai from the animated feature category at the Academy Awards was actually the winner of the Best Animated Independent Feature at the Annies.
Well, they had a separate category. Who was it competing against?
Well, there's one with a French title called C'est Magnifique Gâteau.
French New Wave animated film.
There's
Acclaimed director Felipe Guadalajara. That's
one here that I think is a Japanese movie called, it's Japanese, called MFKZ. There's one called Ruben Brandt Collector. Not sure what that is. And Tito and the Birds. So just to show how neophyte we are in our animation knowledge, a lot of these movies are new to us, but
I guess I gotta up my indie animated game.
I don't
There's
know.
probably a lot of really good stuff out there too. That's the problem. I really don't go out seeking this stuff as often as I probably should.
I guess I'd have to see some of these things to find out just how worth seeking out they are. But
what's the most hipster animated film you've seen? I would say Secret Life, the Secret Book of Kells, Secret of Kells. See, I don't even know the name, but
I think it's The Secret of Kells. I really liked The Little Prince.
The Netflix.
Netflix, yeah.
What did you?
French animated film. It was really good.
I'm glad you think so. I was a huge fan of the book, and my best friend and I, we had a little something too much. We were both huge fans of the book. Then we drank a bit, and then watched The Little Prince, and we were all just in tears and destroyed.
It's kind of mainstream. Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
There are probably some Miyazaki films that count as hipster, or in.
Isle of Dogs is pretty hipster.
But it's Wes Anderson, and I mean he's. Are these like what's the word? Indie directors, or these acclaimed directors, these kind of prestigious directors? Are they even? Is it even hipster if you like them? Like, I feel like Wes Anderson is mainstream, even while he is auteur.
Well, you have to kind of look at the intent, and Wes Anderson just has a very distinctive auteur sensibility. Even if his work has gotten a lot of mainstream attention, I don't think it's as much about the reception as it is the intention behind the artist, and just the artistry, the vision, if you will.
Your name probably counts then as hipster. I saw that.
Yeah.
I really liked that. Did you see that?
I haven't seen it yet.
It was just crazy. All of a sudden, this Japanese film was like so popular out of nowhere that theaters started throwing it in America, and it was like you could go see it pretty much anywhere. It
Shoot,
was really cool.
missed it. Best animated special production was Mary Poppins Returns. So just
That's
something
fair.
that, yeah, wasn't a feature or a short. But, and I don't recognize any of the things that Mary Poppins was up against, but kind of cool that that won an award. No, well, today we are actually talking about a movie that has a bit of artistic clout behind it. The director is definitely an auteur. That is Incredibles 2 from 2018. Brad Bird, the director, he definitely has a very signature style about his films. He's kind of a purist, hence taking 14 years to come out with the sequel to the incredibly successful original The Incredibles from 2004 we discussed recently.
Which should have been the first sequel they ever made after Toy Story 2, obviously. But
Well,
had to get through a couple Cars films before getting to this one.
that's true. 2 of them. Yes, this is the longest gap between an original Pixar film and its sequel. But this movie did, by the way, win 2 Annies. Outstanding Achievement for Music in an Animated Feature Production by Michael Giacchino. And then it also won Outstanding Achievement for Storyboarding.
Dang, you can get an award for good storyboarding. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And so, without further ado, let's just jump right into this.
Yeah.
Briefly, probably won't go too in depth, but there's a lot to unpack here. This is the longest animated film ever made at 1 hour and 58 minutes. Computer animated film, I should say.
Okay.
Which
Wow.
is a good sign. That's one of my biggest complaints about animated movies, especially Disney movies.
Too short.
Yeah. Pixar, I feel like they struggle with that less. Their movies always seem pretty
They feel
Yeah.
complete.
complete. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is no
Especially
exception.
Incredibles 1. And every Toy Story film. Every Toy Story film feels like this just epic like journey.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, well, what did you think of Incredibles 2?
I loved it a lot. It maybe wasn't the most, I don't know, memorable movie of last year. Like, I mean, it was quite the impressive slate.
I know what you mean by that. Yeah.
And of course, one of 2 animated superhero movies from last year. I don't like playing the comparison game too much. I just, when I saw Incredibles 2, it just seemed like an aggressively good movie. And it was kind of firing on all levels, a very human, personal, like organic level, as well as grandiose blockbuster superhero genre film.
Mm-hmm. And then creative and wacky.
Yeah. Had kind of all the signature animated. I mean, talk about squash and stretch. I mean, you have that covered with Elastigirl, Helen. And she's the main protagonist of this film, you could say.
Mm-hmm. Which I really like about the film. I think there's a wonderful choice in the story.
This is actually the 4th time something similar to that has occurred, where the basically the antagonist or the protagonist of a Pixar sequel is the sort of second leading character of the original. You had that with Monsters University. Sully's the main protagonist of the original Monsters Inc., whereas Mike is lead protagonist of the second film. Cars, Lightning McQueen being the main of the original, and then Mater, of course, infamously taking over the mantle in Cars 2. And then Finding Nemo, Marlin being the main character of the original.
Ah,
Yeah.
Pixar, we're on to you. We know your secret.
So this
That's not
actually,
true for Toy Story, is it? Woody
no,
is the
no, you're
protagonist in
right.
all three.
Yeah, yeah. But this could be a precedent, and we're going to talk about this a little later in the episode. Stay tuned for after our discussion on Incredibles 2 for a little bit of what I'll term Frozen Corner. This being the Thodcast, originally conceived as a Frozen fan podcast, believe it or not. We're going to be talking a little bit about Frozen after
And
the
we all
main.
had to ask: is there enough to talk about Frozen for unlimited episodes? Probably, you would say.
Well, we haven't done this before, and we probably won't do it every episode now until Frozen 2 comes out.
We can. I mean,
Yeah.
every little bit of new info that comes out, or new insight that, or
Yeah, but maybe not every week. It'll be great to have Jody back for these little
Yes.
discussions. But yeah, Frozen Corner. Stay tuned if you're at all inclined.
grab your mugs of cocoa and sit by the fire in our Frozen Corner.
But maybe Frozen 2 will take a cue from this pattern of Pixar sequels, and while Anna, of course, being the main protagonist in the first film, Elsa might be featured more in this sequel.
I'd bet my life on it, as Humperdinck. Yes.
Yeah, well, my conception for the sequel to Frozen was to introduce a new character and have him be the sort of the main protagonist.
Stay
sharing
tuned for Frozen Corner to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Well, this is about new. You have new info, so this is new to me. So and new to the audience.
I'm just talking about my idea for Frozen 2, which was to introduce like an all new character, and I thought that would be kind of interesting and
Do you want to
innovative.
save that for the Frozen Corner, or do you want to do it now?
At an eventual episode in a later installment, sure, not necessarily
Great.
right now, but not.
You need to do one of those YouTube videos where it's like my story idea, and then there's a bunch of like pictures, and you like.
No,
just
I'm not going to do
do
that.
a narration of the whole story. And
No.
Okay.
And of course people would immediately wonder, why would you come up with a new like male main antagonist or main protagonist for a Frozen movie when it's supposed to be about two female protagonists?
It's because
And-
the idea is really cool.
Yeah, well, and it wouldn't seem like this character probably wouldn't be featured any more than Anna or Elsa, but like it would be
But just
kind
a
of,
new
it'd be
window.
told from his perspective, kind of in the way like the original Star Wars is told from the droid's perspective, But
Yes, exactly. Or when a lot of famous novels and literature are like, there's an opening chapter where some outside figure is like writing down their thoughts about events that they witnessed.
Mhm,
Wuthering Heights being a good example of that. The whole
mhm.
story is the nanny telling, what from her eyes what she saw. This whole wonderfully barbaric story of two lovers.
Well, this Incredibles 2 could be said to be told from, I think,
Jack's perspective.
Yeah.
I was joking, but you weren't. So go into that.
I mean, this is a minor character from the original Incredibles. One that, you could perhaps wonder why they even bothered to include a third child of Helen and Bob Parr, the kind of co-lead parents. And yeah, I mean, Jack is an infant in both films. This movie picks up right after the original left off with the sort of opening fight sequence between the Incredibles and the Underminer, played by...
Which is exactly what I wanted them to do.
Yeah, well, it's a good set piece to showcase. And the Underminer, of course, played by Pixar mainstay John Ratzenberger. And yeah, this fight like has no real conclusion. It really just kind of plunges the Incredibles back into the same predicament they were in the first movie. But yeah, it's good that they're showing this continued struggle between supers and the law, and the eventual resolution of that.
Yeah, the law makes a great case in that opening scene when they're debriefing the supers after the big fight. Did you even catch the villain? No. Did you stop the bank from being robbed? No. And
Yeah.
We have insurance for this kind of thing. The best thing that would have been if you just did nothing.
Yeah, they're digging themselves in an even deeper hole, which is a great setup for the main plot of the film. Speaking of holes, the Underminer being a very mole-like character. In fact, in the first Fantastic Four comic, one of the villains is Mole Man. I don't know if you knew
any resemblance to the design of the Underminer?
Yeah, he's kind of a squat, rotund character. I imagine the Underminer, you don't even see his eyes. His eyes are totally covered by his helmet. I think it's a similar design. I mean, I didn't realize till today, like, there is a DC character named Elastigirl. I'd either forgotten that or just hadn't heard of that because she's just such an obscure character. But DC gave permission for Pixar to use the name Elastigirl.
Smart of them. Good of them.
Very smart. So, the film follows essentially the superheroes' attempt, the Incredibles, attempt to break back out into the mainstream. I like the conflict between, this modus operandi on the part of not only the Incredibles, but also Frozone, and then these new characters to whom we are introduced. One voiced by Bob Odenkirk of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad fame, Saul Goodman, who plays Winston Dever, a billionaire media mogul, who's kind of the face of the Operation DevTech, who was also accompanied by his sister, portrayed by Catherine Keener, whose name, if spoken aloud at any point during the film, would have been a dead giveaway. But her name is Evelyn Dever. And I never put two and two together over the course of the film. It's only later when reading her name did I realize, Evelyn
Dever. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, maybe Mr. and Mrs. Dever could have chosen a better name for their daughter. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and so these two characters, Winston, Evelyn Dever, do have a very similar origin story to Batman.
Yeah, they sure did. That whole dilemma of what was the best. Yeah, I think he's kind of dumb that he went and tried to call superheroes instead of like hiding and calling 911. I don't know.
Yeah,
he sure was pretty secure in his friendship with superheroes.
Yeah, kind of strange.
But they had gone underground already, so yeah, that makes it even more dumb that he like called them.
Well, he just was endlessly holding out hope. But these are the only characters seen to die in the film.
Yeah, a revolver goes off.
So yeah, I mean, we'll be going into full spoilers here, but yeah, I mean, it's a PG-rated film. Some dark content. It's not by any means the first PG-rated Pixar film. It is, however, one of four both Disney and Pixar animated films to be consecutive release that are also sequels. So we have Incredibles 2, which is followed by Ralph Breaks the Internet, followed by Toy Story 4, and then followed by Frozen 2.
We get Toy Story 4 this summer, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
The release schedules of Toy Story 4 and Incredibles 2 were flipped. Incredibles 2 was originally slated for this year, believe it or not. But it ended up coming ahead of schedule. And
when does that happen in animated filmmaking?
Yeah, I don't. They just must have really had a strong story, and not much changed over the course of like when they went into serious production on this film, which happened shortly after the release of Tomorrowland, which was 2015, I believe.
What has Tomorrowland to do?
Well, Tomorrowland was directed by Brad Bird. Shortly after that film's release,
he was
full production began. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you use the words. They must have had a good story right away. And it certainly seems like they did. This story, while you said in the beginning that this might, for some reason, wasn't as memorable as other animated films, and I resonate with that. After I left the movie and as time's gone by, I didn't remember a lot about it, but it doesn't seem like it's a story that they like. There wasn't like a lot of hesitation. They knew exactly what they wanted to do and where they were going next, and every scene is like has this heart to it where you're like, someone had this great idea, this was a great idea. Everything that Bob does back at the house, everything that Elastigirl does, all of it, it's all really tight and really good. If I mean, the movie's way smarter than I am. The whole, going into the technology in use, and Elastigirl and Evelyn with their whole plans of setting up the cameras to trap the screen slaver, and when they get into all that like fancy surveillance tech stuff, I really zone out.
A lot of fantasy technology in this.
I love her bike. That's probably one of my favorite things.
Oh gosh, yes.
Although I had and then I started freaking out. I'm like, wait a minute, how does she keep the back half attached? She must just have to hold on really tight with her thighs. Like, seriously, I mean,
Xenia on the top on that bike.
The front half has handlebars, but the back, your butt's just on it, like on a horse.
I think we've got a bat cycle from the Dark Knight situation where both wheels are independently controlled, and they're like computer synchronized so that they're both like self-propelled.
Yeah, they're both self-propelled, but it still doesn't answer the question of how she stays on, unless there's like little stirrups.
Okay. It wouldn't be hard. Like if both wheels are moving, like if it would maybe be harder to stay on if she had to just drag the rear wheel, but if it's also moving, it'd just be a matter of pushing and pulling the two,
Yeah, and when you're trying to, because if they're both moving at the same time, but you're all trying to manipulate their distance with your actual body, like that sounds really hard to keep track of. It probably doesn't make any sense in physics.
I don't know. I mean, maybe just it's probably not that hard to slightly adjust the difference in speed just by pushing, and pulling the two wheels.
Yeah, because you'd have to control the speed of the back wheel and control the speed of the front wheel. So you've got like two whole separate gearboxes that you're trying to account for, or
I don't think that's controlled through like the motorcycle controls. I think that's all just Mrs. Incredible / Elastigirl, Helen, as I shall henceforth refer to her. Using basically her strength to manipulate the bike.
She's hammering on the throttle, speeding up, but then if she needs to back the back wheel up, it's just her own power moving it backwards despite the unchanging actual speed of or moving or propelling herself farther forward with her front half. That makes more sense.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, she's just very dexterous on that bike, jumping from like steel girders to windowsill. Yeah, it's
Just like for that
train
scene
tracks.
freaks me out. It's
Yeah.
like there's no how man, like I don't care how super you are. That is just so
It's awesome though. Like it just makes for
incredible.
such just thrilling animated set piece. Very refreshing for a world that's kind of seen it all with just the deluge of superhero films that we've had over the years.
Yeah.
It was one of the more innovative action sequences, the motorcycle chase.
Yeah. How do you stop this runaway train? Really.
Well, and it's more believable because she is a superhuman who has like heightened senses and dexterity and these crazy powers. And she's experienced on a motorcycle. She said, she used to have a motorcycle when she was.
How did Bob not know
high
that?
school.
Like
I don't know.
she used it while she was a teen, and then like maybe it was, I don't know, she sold it because she needed money for college before marrying Bob. Like,
That
before
probably just didn't
Bob.
come up very often in their conversations, like her having a mohawk. He maybe knew about it at some point, but then had
When
since
she said
forgotten.
mohawk, was she talking about her hair? I thought she was still talking about the brand of the bike. I was
No,
like, yeah, it was a mohawk.
no, that's not.
I had a mohawk once. There's a lot. She meant her hair.
Yeah.
I can't picture that at all.
Well,
That's-
especially in like an alternate 1950s or 40, late 40s, because I mean this movie is supposed to be set in like 1964, a very stylized alternate version of 19.
Yeah, I got my mohawk in the Pacific
64.
Theater. It was on a dare with my squad mates. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder. I could see her having been in fighting in World War II. I wonder if they did, like, as superheroes. They kind of like maybe
It might not have transpired exactly as it did here. Like there aren't actual references to World War II in these movies, are there? I don't think there are.
no.
But yeah, I mean it's very different because you do have technology like microchips and basically internet or cellular technology. Like Dash is able to call Helen on her motorcycle.
Yeah, and also the
funny sequence.
fashion never strikes me as being like 50s or 60s. Like Evelyn Dever, I mean, she seemed like just some modern woman. Like,
I love the Johnny Quest references though.
I really want to watch that. I kept seeing the DVD in the back room where I was working at Target, and I like read the back of the case, and I was like, "This sounds amazing." Is it like a kind of a popular, beloved franchise?
Yeah, it's very
Okay.
very beloved from that era. Just surprisingly well constructed narratives, for animation, television animation at the time.
That's what it said. It was like this is the first animated series to tell like a consecutive narrative while also staying like in like the realm of believability or something. So sounds
yeah, also reference to what was the Outer Limits, which I think is a live action show. I read something about this being the second time Pixar has used live action footage in a film. First, of course, being WALL-E.
I don't remember there being live action footage. I just remember there was CG footage of this bank robber show preceding the raccoon attack.
Oh, yeah, that was made up.
That was made up. Okay. I didn't know if it was like a reanimation of a real property, but
yeah, like back to the chase scene. A similar instance in an animated film I can think of is remember The Adventures of Tintin? That had a lot of like wacky.
Vaguely, yeah.
chase
I remember
hijinks.
that about Tintin there was a lot of things that were just too absurd.
It was yeah, exactly. And like these are supposed to be normal people.
Yeah.
And
Elastigirl, I'll buy her doing anything, honestly. But yeah, Tintin
was like Kung Fu Panda, where you've got like vehicles riding on like electrical wires, or just like clothesline type situation, but
Yeah, really stretching suspension of disbelief to the breaking point. And a lot of it, if I recall, or just anytime the sequence of like absurdity as a result of like accident and coincidences, that always bothers me way more than it's like characters doing things. Like Helen was controlling everything she was doing on that bike. All of the stunts were her careful calculation and coordination. And yeah, really makes you, it's great. I don't know. It's just like you're like, on the one hand, you're just sitting by the pool having an honest chat about your family with your husband, and then in the next scene you're doing things that no human could dream of in a million years. It's like, wow, you really are. Superheroes should have like incredible power and celebrity, honestly, in the world. Like if they wanted to, they could. I mean,
there probably is some kind of superhero fandom subculture. You like, she's immediately recognized by people riding in
by
a
spring
in a car.
breaking
Yeah,
in 1950s. Yeah,
exactly. One of them's like, "Marry me, Elastigirl."
marry me. I don't care that you're 49. Like,
What?
I
No, she's
wouldn't care that how old is she? If she,
in 30s, I would say.
is
Still,
that's true. I forget how young Violet and Dash actually are. Yeah, Dash is what, like 10, and Violet's 13, 14. Yeah, no.
I mean, she's elastic, so probably not going to crack. At least
Yeah,
not
no kidding.
Not anytime soon. The actors of these characters, though, are kind of getting up there. Craig T. Nelson is 74.
He sounded so tired, even in the scenes where he isn't tired. He's like, "Hey, Decker, can you take care of this thing?"
Yeah. Holly Hunter is 60.
She had the Carrie Fisher going on.
Yeah, she was 45 when the first one came out. Sarah Vowell plays Violet, is older than Holly Hunter was when the original came out. Of course, and they got a new actor to play Dash, Huck Milner.
I knew that and forgot it because he sounds just like him.
Oh yeah, you don't notice it at all. But yeah, unless like Dash in the original were voiced by like a female actor, as they sometimes do, like they would have had to have cast a new actor. There aren't any guys who sound like that, now who sounded like that in 2004.
Yeah, my goodness.
Speaking of Haley Joel Osment.
Haley Joel Osment. He did not have to try as hard as he did in this one to sound young, because there's you notice a big voice change between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2.
I mean, he is post-pubescent, definitely, in Kingdom Hearts 3. So he could play that character.
I was thinking about that a lot today, actually.
He's already had adolescence, as Dash would say.
Is she having adolescence?
Such a great line.
Every Violet line and scene is amazing, and
all the details and like the family moments. That's my favorite part of the film. My favorite aspect. Okay, good. Yeah.
No, absolutely. But they wouldn't be what they were if the movie wasn't also awesome and full of superhero stuff. It's otherwise it'd be boring. But like the fact that this is a movie about action-packed superhero action, it makes those family scenes so much more familiar and enjoy.
I'm trying to think.
They stand out.
Like I remember like the funniest laugh I had in 2018, which was while listening to a podcast where a guy was doing a Billy D. Williams Lando impersonation, and he was reading off of like a Denny's menu. Denny's had a Star Wars or Solo tie-in. And then he also went on to read this like crazy passage from a Star Wars novel about Lando talking about his wardrobe, including specific aspects of like the crotch area of one of his clothing items. Such a trippy,
that's bizarre.
Yeah, thing to include in a Star Wars book. But the funniest movie moment of last year for me was probably the spit take when the family, they go to the Happy Platter Bob's trying to reunite Violet with her estranged date, who forgets about her because Dicker wipes his memory. What's his name? Tony Ridinger. Yeah, he's got a big role in this movie.
He does, and it's fun.
He looks
is
way
that
better.
A typical dad plan, or is that not a dad plan? Like, would a dad ever do that, or is that exactly what a dad would do?
I mean, he wants to make it up to her that like it was his fault that his mind got wet. Tony's mind.
Yeah.
But he does like push it really far, like even to the point of you can tell Tony is kind of like, you're kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, you're the completely wrong way of going about it, but that's why it's so wonderful. Yeah, she shoots all the water out of her nose in one glorious millisecond. That was probably the loudest I laughed during the movie too. And
it's like she usually doesn't drip like that.
Who says that again? Yeah, that
Bob.
But she usually doesn't drip
this much.
Saying? What does that mean? What is? Mom, go home. You're drunk.
He kind of is during much of the film from sleep deprivation.
Yeah. They could have had that in the film too. Like Bob resorts to alcohol to deal with his struggle.
Yeah. I mean, understandable that he doesn't at all because it's just him in charge of the kids during a significant portion of the film. So it'd be kind of irresponsible for him to be breaking out the, Jack Daniels. Yeah. But there is casual drinking in this movie, kind of
between the ladies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Casual, like mild curse words too, which you don't see very often in animated movies. Because I think there's a strong correlation between like cursing and low box office returns, unless you're Shrek.
Yeah.
But that totally breaks with this movie because this is the highest grossing animated film of all time domestically by a wide margin.
What curse words do they use?
Oh, hell, damn, that type of thing.
They say damn?
Yeah, yeah.
Who says damn?
Well, Evelyn actually on multiple occasions. I don't think anyone else does besides her character.
Yeah, so it probably works because she's a villain, and also because it's The Incredibles, and
And like, remember Steve? Is that the hipster dude in Iron Giant?
Oh, yeah, Beatnik.
Yeah. Like he's got Dean.
Call me Dean.
Dean, of course.
There's a squirrel in my pants, Hogarth. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. Thank you for reminding me of
previous Brad Bird film. One of the characters in this movie bears resemblance to Dean. It's that the one secondary superhero, Electric. What's the name? Electric. Yeah. You maybe don't remember his name. The electrical dude who's kind of creepy looking, kind of has.
See, that's why I'm confused. You said one of the secondary superheroes bears a resemblance to Dean, but all of the secondary superheroes look creepy, and Dean is like the most attractive animated character ever. So,
well, just sort of, like a more gaunt, more shriveled version of Dean, Electrix.
Yeah, I mean, I get like he had a very defined jaw and chin, this character in The Incredibles 2, and Dean has very defined, he's bony.
I think that character was initially designed as like a third sibling to the Devers. He was going to be a villain character, but they we're introduced to like a whole motley crew of supporting hero characters, and they are like all surprisingly awkward and creepy looking.
Yeah, which is fine, if you want representation of awkward and weird people. You don't get that a lot in movies, but still, like they were terrible from head to toe. Their outfits, and
I don't know. I mean,
They
Yeah,
didn't all. They weren't all very. None of them were very interesting. They all had
Mhm.
kind of weak personalities. Like so,
Yeah.
that was probably the weaker point for me. Is like they introduced all these characters, and I didn't end up caring about a single one of them, except for maybe Reflux, because he's an old man, and you automatically care about old people.
Yeah, yeah, and like he had a certain appeal about his character. He was designed to look like a frog, which is
Yeah.
what allowed that character to be kind of more appealing than someone who, you know, typically, you know, uses vomiting as a superpower.
Yeah, that was raunchy, man.
Um, then you have the crush guy, Crush Hour, and the guy who's kind of a brick was his name. He's sort of like a juggernaut character. And then Void, she had a significant role, played by Sophia Bush, possibly designed to look like Kristen Stewart.
Ha!
Mhm.
Yes, yeah, I see that.
And she had a cool. Of course, all these characters, like this select group, were recruited specifically to become villainous minions, you know, by the Screenslaver. So makes sense that they would all sort of have, you know, a shadier streak to them.
Yeah, so that you'd buy it more once they turned. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. The Screech, the owl, creepy owl character.
Freaky.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. No, I mean, with great power comes great responsibility. And, you know, if you've got characters with tremendous power, it's understandable, significant number of them, you know, aren't necessarily the most scrupulous.
Yeah, it's throw a pebble and see where it lands. You know.
Yeah, I mean, the technology in the Incredibles world is kind of understandably heightened to help maybe combat threats from superhero or superpowered sources. So the main antagonist in this movie is, well, goes by the Screenslaver as their moniker. Of course, turns out to be Evelyn Dever. Winston Dever seems kind of like a, you know, red herring or an obvious suspect. I feel like at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, a little too do-goody, too salesman-y.
Kind of greasy.
Evelyn seems like the chill one, and then yeah, I don't understand how she used the Screenslaver when Elastigirl finds his headquarters. It's of course a pizza delivery guy being mind controlled by Evelyn. But how did she control his fighting? How did Evelyn make the Screenslaver battle Elastigirl?
I would imagine
everyone else that gets mind warped kind of they just go still and motionless until well, of course she makes everyone fight at the end. You know, I dozed a little bit there. I
don't know if she is directly controlling anyone. Maybe just like she's able to transmit fighting ability through the hypnosis.
Because possessing the superheroes and just like triggering them to fight or like suggesting that they fight, you know, that's one thing. But Mr. Pizza Delivery guy, yeah, he kind of held his own.
She implies that she was controlling him. Although isn't she shown during that time to be like somewhere else, like monitoring the?
Yeah, she's with Winston.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So maybe she just programmed fighting moves that were then replicated by the delivery guy.
Could be.
Yeah. The Screenslaver is just a puppet, sort of avatar on the part of Evelyn, and doesn't have too big of a role in this movie, although it does deliver some really key exposition and motivation behind Evelyn's true motives.
Yeah, his manifesto about I really like when she's tracking his broadcast. It's a really great moment.
that speech is epic. It's delivered in sort of a heavy-handed way, but up against, it's like played against Helen, like sleuthing around trying to search for the source of the broadcast. So it's contrasted with some of the on-screen action, and fits really well. But like listening, I feel like it's a really sort of truthful sentiment.
It is. It makes you think, and it's super meta too, because, well, we could get into that.
Well, yeah, like the whole idea of passive consumption of life without having to, to work. Evelyn, of course, expresses earlier in the movie about, I don't even know if it's earlier. I think it's later during like the
it's during the
ceremony.
second bout of casual drinking that she talks, that she kind of expresses her.
Yeah, when was during a ceremony or like a reception of some kind, when they're doing the what I can't remember exactly.
Is it
when she's meeting the new superheroes?
Ambassador? No, when she's
they're being introduced to this new group of superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
It's before the summit with the ambassador and the United Nations analog. But yeah, like they're talking, and she's like, yeah, ease is what people are motivated by, the most.
That's what the people want. People want ease. They don't want quality. They want convenience, and they love to sit around on their couches and watch people on TV do incredible things, so that they don't have to. They want to feel, because they're not brave enough to go out and experience and break a sweat in life for themselves. And like what a personal attack, or what a call out to our Netflix culture and our binging and our streaming and our content consuming culture. And of course, so what makes it meta is that they present this message within an animated film about superheroes.
You don't talk, you watch talk shows. You don't play games, you watch game shows. The whole like sensibility within the Incredibles world, where people are just content to like let superheroes fix things and are therefore surrendering their agency. But yeah, I mean, there's so many parallels in real life too. And I don't know if I endorse this view maybe quite as much as Brad Bird maybe does, as this is all coming from his mind. And I think this is a bit of an insight into his own like personal ethos.
Like the Screenslaver's views. Because I mean, it's pretty easy to like hear what the Screenslaver says and then go, he makes a good point, but obviously he's taking it so far into the realm of villainy, and he pathologized. It could have been he could have just been a guy who, I really want to encourage people to go outside, but he's like, no, everyone is fundamentally broken, and the system needs to be restructured and collapsed.
And superheroes remain illegal forever. Yeah, the whole goal is to mind control superheroes and have them perform evil deeds, and then I don't know, like if that would ever work out to where like it wouldn't come out that they were just being mind controlled the whole time, and therefore like they'd be exonerated for the acts that they committed whilst mind controlled.
Yeah,
you would think so. Maybe it's kind of like Syndrome. She'd keep the whole mind control thing. Well, no, it's known that the Screenslaver can mind control people. Publicly broadcast during that interview that the news anchor is being controlled. And
it's not like he was ever going to convince people that the superheroes were being evil of their own volition. I mean, he had already given away that part of his hand. So
I don't know what that would eventually lead to. just the fact that such atrocities were committed that it would at least prolong the process. Like, you're not going to suddenly make superheroes legal if you've just been shown them, killing a whole bunch of high-profile dignitaries.
Yeah. Or, I don't know, mind tricking a bunch of superheroes and making them do evil things might trigger a reverse reaction where heavyweight problems need heavyweight solutions. So then the government is like, superheroes are wreaking havoc. Now we need that. If there were a bunch of mind tricked superheroes wreaking havoc, then the government would probably call out to underground superheroes to rise to meet the challenge.
Well, I like the idea of the underground superheroes kind of making a social stand in this movie. The whole debate with the Incredibles kids, they've got understandable reservations about Helen breaking the law in order to change the law, but that also has very real life context as well.
Yeah, they're surprisingly surprisingly even keeled about it. Their very personhood, it would seem, is what's illegal. And instead of, just being enraged and saying like, well, we absolutely need to break the law because the law is unjust, they, the kids are like, well, or they're all like, well, gee, or Helen is like, the law is the law, whether we like it or not. And
yeah, they all grapple with it, but ultimately decide that the protest is worthwhile.
That there's a way to go about it. That's, for the greater good. Really.
Also some commentary surrounding. Sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
Okay. Well, also some commentary surrounding gender, and several occasions, including at the beginning when, because it starts off with that sort of cold open scenario of Tony being interviewed by Dicker, reminiscent not of a scene in the original Incredibles, but the spin-off Jack Attack, which was released shortly after the original Incredibles for the DVD, in which Dicker is interviewing the babysitter Kari.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a nice callback to that short film.
Yeah, I like the opening a lot. I love the really sharp cuts to the subtle title.
Oh yeah, titles. Like the inner titles.
Yeah, there's just you've got some interview, and then it cuts sooner than you'd expect, and it's dead silent and just really subtle font, and it's like Pixar is proud to present. It's like super epic.
Yeah, that was probably made famous by something. I can't think of it right now. But like that technique, maybe I guess you go all the way back to like Psycho. That movie had very like quick cutting titles. Yeah. The Jack Attack. One of my favorite jokes from Pixar when Syndrome shows up to the door and is talking to Kari, and he's trying to put on an act, like being all friendly, like Syndrome trying to act friendly, which is kind of cool. Like he just seems like an ordinary.
That's a deleted scene, though,
geeky
right?
Dude. No, it's, or is it a no? There's
an extended deleted scene where he's like, she's like, "What does the S stand for?" And he's like, "Sitter." Or isn't that a deleted scene? When he was like, it was originally going to be BS, but
isn't that a scene? I thought that was in Jack Attack. I think it is. They show Syndrome showing up to the Pars in Jack Attack, and that's when that whole exchange happens.
Yeah,
like, what does the S stand for? Well, it's a sitter, because otherwise I'd be walking around with a big BS.
Yeah,
on my chest. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah. That kind of like radar humor is just so much more effective in animation or content that's targeted towards a younger audience, because
it stands out.
You're playing with the fringes whenever you're going to those places, whereas in just any old adult themed product. You know,
You get right to
goes.
it, and it's
Yeah. So it's not quite as tantalizing.
delightful.
But yeah, I mean, there's reference to Tony Reidinger. He uses the word manhood and not
Not explicitly referring to anything,
yeah,
but he could have been. I mean,
he's like, I'm really secure manhood wise, because he comments about strong women.
yeah, he's like, hey, I didn't run away. I don't have a problem with strong, independent women. I'm very secure manhood wise, but the whole superhero thing overwhelmed him.
It's good. It cuts right to the heart of the root of misogyny and patriarchy.
Does it?
I think, I mean, that's, I would say, what people would point to as the main root of patriarchal tendencies. Men being insecure about their own masculinity. But insecurity, of course, being the root, and fear and that type of thing being the root of any of cultural ills. But the particular ill of misogyny, of course, being related.
Ralph, insecurities.
Exactly. Related to the insecurity of, won't go, of insecure men, afraid of losing their power. But anyways, and then later, Bob's references to, she's a credit to her gender or whatever, and then the argument about who should be the first to reveal themselves to the world during the whole Winston's grand plan.
Yeah,
to roll out.
They made a great case. I mean, she's more efficient with lower collateral damage count. It'd be fun to see the numbers. I was hoping that they'd like point to a PowerPoint and that like the stats would appear on the screen and we could see like just how much damage Mr. Incredible had done compared to Frozone and Elastigirl.
Well, heavyweight problems require heavyweight solutions.
Yeah, and I'd be fun to know, or like a brief montage of like particular cases. Do you remember the bulldozer case, or do you remember the Tyrannosaur attack?
Oh, like the Cape montage. That'd be kind of cool. That would be a lot of work for just a very limited amount of screen time.
Right. And we all saw the opening to Incredibles 1, so we can, have if that sort of thing happened on a regular basis. But
yeah, well, and they do show clips from that open from Incredibles, from the original, the interviews.
TV,
yeah, it's nice. We should talk about the visuals before we wrap up. This movie is just so gorgeous, and the original looked good, but like this one's just so much more detail, like the fibers of the suits and all the particle effects and just the world being so expansive.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Like even like when Violet throws her suit in the garbage disposal and turns it on, and like the shaking, it causes the faucet to rotate. Just all that little detail just makes everything so. the philodendron. the
philodendrons. Frozone's ice looks just incredible as it like gets ground up and starts to melt and that kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's just a lot more going on than, of course, I mean, that was 14 years ago since the original, so makes sense that this, I mean, hour and 58 minutes long. It's basically a live action movie, just happens to be animated.
True.
So with all the details, and that's the kind of the thing. You used a great term. Was it last episode or the one before? You talking about? I think it was during our Frozen episode. You used the term. Can you think of what I'm thinking of?
Gumby. Gumby, the Gumby of
Gumbiness
of films.
Yeah, that's got to be a recurring bit. kind of like my sausage party rule. But yeah, the Gumbiness. This movie had very low, like,
Very low Gumbiness. The only
yeah,
thing Gumby about it is when Elastigirl stretches, but
yeah,
that's intentional, and so
exactly.
it really works. But otherwise, no, very just down to earth, believable, and gorgeous animation. You keep saying, and this is great, when like characters in these animated films, they look like Who's. Um,
Yeah,
and sometimes and often background characters, like you pointed out, those background characters, they all look like Who's, just very low res, round. Maybe
mhm,
they're a bit more on the higher on the Gumby scale, but a lot of movies just they're like their leads suffer from
yeah.
from looking like Who's.
Like little like little button noses, cute little button noses.
Yep. Yeah, cute little button, very just perfectly spherical faces, and
Hmm.
or oval even.
Hmm.
The
Yeah,
How to
oblate.
Train Your Dragon characters look a bit hooey sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
there were a
and
lot of
Frozen. Oh
background.
gosh, yeah. When we were watching
Mhm.
Frozen, the background characters all look like Who's in Frozen. It's hilarious.
They do. Yeah, the just proportions of the faces are just very cartoonish, and tend to be kind of similar, kind of homogenous throughout those background characters. Here in Incredibles, there really didn't seem to be like a homogenous feel to any of the background characters. They all felt individual.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key. And the acting is another thing. Like I watching Incredibles, I had to wonder, like, was any of this mocap or was a lot of it mocap? Because they their movements are so sharp and believable and realistic. Like, and even when they're exaggerated, because they're obviously exaggerated, but just like the subtle ways that they'll they'll look around aimlessly for a little bit in search of the object of whatever they're trying to find, or they just, I don't know, do subtle little believable human things,
Yeah,
little
there
hesitations
wasn't
and uncertainties in the action that really fleshes them out.
wasn't any mocap, but they use a lot of like video references for the animation.
Do they ever have the actors, like, other than just read the lines, put a camera on them and like
Oh
act
yeah,
out this part, like what would you do, and then okay.
I think they've done that ever since the dawn of computer animation. Maybe not with like the original Toy Story and stuff, but I think when human characters became a common thing, they always used like the actors' performances as video references for the animation of the characters.
Because a lot of because I'm just thinking, whenever I watch like behind the scenes footage of actors reading their lines into the mic, usually they're just doing really expressive gestures that like their characters aren't at all doing in the film. But they're
No.
they're staring straight ahead, reading their lines, and just like kind of
Mhm.
flailing.
Well, you're familiar with Bob Odenkirk, right? From Better Call Saul and Breaking
Yeah,
Bad.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
like his Winston in this movie just has the exact same mannerisms as Bob Odenkirk does. Kind of.
So that's probably they're pulling up video
Yeah.
references of these actors' work and like going
Mhm.
off of that, rather than like you've recorded your lines for the actual voiceover, but now
Mhm.
like memorize your lines and quick act out the scene. They probably don't do that very
No,
much.
yeah, they just look at them in the sound booth
And
and
it's
kind of
yeah.
mimic that. And that's they come up with these designs sort of early on in the visual development stage, but as these characters are being animated and formed in the frame of the film, they actually come to resemble their actors quite a bit.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, you're having these characters manipulated to look like it's the actors, speaking these lines through these characters.
Yeah, you can't really get away from it. It just makes it that much more natural, I
Yeah,
think.
I even that this is one of the things I um said when I met the directors of Frozen. One of the questions I had was, how much influence did the actors have on the appearance of the characters? And the answer is basically none, although the fact that they do reference the performances quite a bit during the animation does inevitably lead to a lot of similarities just coming through in the way these characters move, at least facially.
Right. Facially, and how they shrug their shoulders, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you wash your hands? With soap? Did you dry them?
What? Is this all vegetables? Who wanted all vegetables?
I did. So, are we going to talk about it?
What?
The elephant in the room.
What elephant?
It's time to make some wrong things right. Help me bring supers back into the sunlight. We need to change people's perceptions about superheroes, and Elastigirl is our best play.
Better than me?
Bye, sweetie.
I'll watch the kids, no problem.
Well, do you think there will be an Incredibles 3?
Absolutely. Although Brad Bird's known to be stubborn, and I think even if he had to be dragged, kind of kicking and screaming, and he doesn't ultimately have control over the franchise. And he hates. I listened to an interview with him. He hates the word franchise.
Good.
Yeah. No. Understandably.
It's a content type word.
It's like a pejorative almost. I don't mind it. I think it's perfectly acceptable, but it calls to mind like a fast food chain.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want that when it comes to your films that you want to hold in high esteem.
Right. I would much rather say the Star Wars saga than the Star Wars franchise, but franchise just refers more broadly to the property, as merchandise.
And that's fine. Like I like when a piece of art becomes so just ubiquitous that there's a whole culture that emerges surrounding that, and that is sort of the franchise. That's the broader immersion into our popular consciousness.
I mean, that's what you want. Like, artists, no matter how pure these artists are, like ultimately they want people to acknowledge and appreciate what they make. And, no one wants to not get famous or not make money off of, these.
That's the thing. Yeah. Like the whole art for the sake of art, but and then you simply look down upon or eschew any sort of economic advantage that can come from that.
That's dumb.
That shouldn't be the point, but it shouldn't also be demeaned.
I think you need to ultimately I think all artists want is they want to make something meaningful and true. They want to start with art for art's sake, and then they want art for art's sake to become successful and powerful. But what they don't want is to just be a part of a machine that mass produces a demographic and statistically generated product.
No.
They don't want to start with the money in mind and then make something. They want to start with the heart and then hope that works. And that's what Pixar is really good at. They make sequels. Obviously, their sequels are going to make money, but they put the same heart into them as if they were birthing a baby, an idea for the first time.
Well, and the economics of art operates. The economics of art operates on a completely inverse spectrum of what the economics of commerce does, which is if a piece of art really isn't that resonant with an audience, it doesn't make any money. There's almost no reception or widespread acclaim, financial gain, that type of thing. Like you have to be really successful before your art starts to see a profit.
Right.
But once it starts to see a profit, it's usually like, if it rains, it pours, it's exponentially successful once it reaches the point where it's actually successful. It's sort of, you get what I'm saying?
It's hard. What my old theater management professor said, I believe he put it this way. He said, it's hard to make a living, but there's a chance you'll make a killing.
Yes.
And that's why the starving artist is a stereotype, because there's just enough people out there who believe in the risk, who are willing to take, doing this as an occupation, doing art as an occupation is most likely for a long time going to be unrewarding fiscally. But if the idea gets picked up by the right person, then boom, you explode. And now with the internet, it's just so much easier to reach a market. It's so much easier to reach a market. That's why there is a demand for that ghastly word content, because more people have more ways of getting exactly what they want. I am in the mood for list of adjectives. You can find it.
Yeah, there's little middle ground when it comes to art. And yeah, once you start to try to like camp out in that middle ground of, maybe not making it at all versus making a killing, then it becomes, what's the word? Like tepid, mediocre content,
Yeah. This is your next podcast, The Economics of Art. That's how you...
Well, I mean, saying the economics of art is kind of like saying, the logic of cartoons,
The logic.
Thus, and like, there is there is really none.
Well,
it's supposed to be anarchic.
It's an industry though. So, and actually that's another thing I started thinking about, is the industrialization of all these things. Hear me out. Like I started thinking the music industry. What is that? And where did that come from? Little more than 100 years ago, music was something that families and people and communities just learned and shared together. But now music is this product that we consume from a small population, of people at the top, or, indie artists, if you're hipster enough to go looking for them, that you consume very, but like music used to be this really selfless, intimate, familial gathering place. So
the root term of industry refers to just the act of creating.
Right.
I mean, we've extrapolated out into meaning like the business, but industry, like that core term itself, does refer to the process of something.
Yeah, being industrious.
Yes,
it means it's.
So I like to think of entertainment industry or music industry in terms of like the creative act.
Right. But so often the impetus for being industrious is with these really high-minded, really wanting to be popular, wanting to be successful, wanting to make it big, wanting to fit a mold, wanting to ride the success of something else.
These lofty goals of success and fame,
rather than maybe.
Well, yeah. Conversely, the result or the most likely way to yield success in this industry is to simply enjoy the process itself and not have those ulterior motives.
That's where you get so many stories about the cliche or the stereotype and the very true archetype of the struggling artist who collapses or just loses sight of himself, loses themselves in the grind and the hustle, and has all these big dreams, but it ends up consuming them because they forgot what really mattered, which was love and relationships and the simple things.
You gotta love what you do, and you'll never work a day.
Do it for the right reason.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, that was the philosophical aspect of the pre-Frozen corner.
Yeah, well, it is so important, and a lot of these movies, especially from Disney, do have themes about like following your dreams and doing what you love, and there's a lot of truth in that. You have to find something that motivates you.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people kind of get hung up on things that motivate them that aren't exactly productive,
Right.
like
Like,
entertainment.
yeah, but you get a sense from these Pixar films that the same spirit that all these people had when they were just young bucks, and when they were doing it for fun,
Mhm.
they're still doing it for fun, even though they're massive. And,
The character Henrietta Selick, she's the ambassador who gets abducted or whatever. You might recognize that name as a reference to Henry Selick, famed animator. Henry Selick directed Night and Bear Before Christmas.
Oh.
And some of the Leica movies. I think, he directed Coraline, I believe, and James and the Giant Peach. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
He was a colleague of Brad Bird back in the day, contemporary during Brad Bird's time at the Disney Animation Studios in the early 80s, as well as a classmate at the California Institute of the Arts, CalArts. Which was home to the classroom A113, and then A113 shows up in a lot of Disney and Pixar movies, and probably animation other animated films as well.
Hey, honey, how are the kids?
Everything's great.
Is she having adolescence?
And Jack?
He's in excellent health.
What the?
Num num cookie.
Oh my God.
Cookie.
Wow, gay. That is freaky.
You know it's crazy, right? To help my family, I gotta leave it. To fix the law, I gotta break it.
You've got to, so our kids can have that choice.
Thank you, young man.
All right, well, that was a lot of philosophical meandering and musing and pontificating, but we can wrap this up here. I think we did a decent enough job of covering the film itself.
Incredibles 3 predictions, quick before.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit of a time jump.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of surprised that this movie didn't, but yeah. Mm-hmm. How old should Jack be? I mean,
I would love Jack as the villain of film.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He could. There could be some conflict amongst the 3 kids. It's implied that Jack won't retain all of his powers. He's listed in this film as having 17. I won't go through them all, but it's implied that he won't superheroes when they're babies can have multiple powers, but then they grow into only retaining a few of them.
I still get the sense that Jack is extraordinary, even by that standard, though. Edna seems like thrilled by him. I mean, it's that 7, a child being born with 5 or 6 maybe, but 17, huh?
Well, you
got yourself a ship.
He's a jack of all trades.
Yeah, wow. That's so obvious. Why
Dash can dash, and Violet.
Stop! You're making me feel really stupid. Okay, well, Violet. What does Violet have to do with her powers? Her shields.
Well, her hair is like really dark purple, isn't it?
That's kind of true, I suppose, depending on the light. Bob, what a strong name. Mm-hmm. Helen. Sounds flexible. I don't know, but
I don't know. And Violet's a wallflower, would you say?
Oh, yeah. Well, and Helen is Helen of Troy because she's the most beautiful animated creature ever constructed.
A lot of nice, lingering shots of Helen in this
Robert the Bruce is very... not a great shot. I wrestled with this. I was like, okay, Helen's lower thigh waist hip ratio is it used to just it's obviously so wonderfully attractive, but I had always just thought it was purely exaggeration. They can do it because they want to. And then I'm like, no, hold on. There's a very practical reason that she looks the way she does. All of her elasticity has to, conservation of mass and energy, it has to have a place to gather. So her legs can stretch so much and they get so thin at the end because there's all that density gathered up there that's ready to kind of decompress. The same is obviously true of, she has, this waist that can continue, that just stretches, but then her top half has a lot of room for. Of course, so anyway,
that logic doesn't, at least Cartesian or platonically extend. Sorry, I'm trying to
came up with the laws of conservation.
Newtonian. In a Newtonian sense, it doesn't extend to Jack, but that's because he draws on the power of alternate dimensions to increase his mass.
An anomaly. And that's why I love the idea of Jack as the villain, because when he's a teenager with just really complicated emotions and ideas, and he has maybe a very strong sense of justice and realizes, I'm the most powerful being that has ever lived. I could make the world exactly the way I want it to be. And he becomes this apocalypse type, and then his family has to somehow save him. And I think that could really they could really address some, because they're so good at addressing powerful themes of family, and they could really go into the darker corners of prodigal family members, and family conflict and family division, even families go through really tough stuff, and this family already has gone through some tough stuff, but like what happens when there's that one family member who kind of goes off the deep end?
There's huge potential. I think there's a chance that they could even do like a fully rendered series out of The Incredibles.
Yeah, they can do that with everything now. And I'm like, do I want everything to be a series? Can I just have my movies? I don't want to. There are so many wonderful shows out there, but they simply take up too much time.
But it's The Incredibles, though.
Other people.
You would probably take time to watch a 10-part Incredibles series, with
a 10-part Incredibles series. Yeah. Okay. When you put it, a 10 episodes, an hour each, that's why like Game of Thrones and Stranger Things were so.
And no compromise on no compromise on animation quality.
Yes, that's key. Yeah, they could do that over the course of a couple of years.
It's probably more likely they would do another sequel, because you can accomplish quite a bit in these movies. It'd be nice to just kind of round out a trilogy, and it'd be a nice send-off for the cast. Anyways, well, we've talked about this enough, so we'll sign off today for the Thodcast. Jody was unable to join us today, unfortunately, but I've had a lot of fun chatting about The Incredibles with you, Dawson.
Always love chatting about The Incredibles.
Yeah, Incredibles 2.
Oh, I forgot to mention, going to see Incredibles 2, I went to see it with the girl I used to date and was trying to get back with her and was really hoping she would date me again. And we went to Incredibles, and the whole time she said she would have an answer for me after the movie. So the whole time I was super wondering what was going to happen. And then she totally said yes, and now we're engaged and we're going to get married. So thank you, Incredibles 2.
Okay, yeah, because that whole story is kind of a red flag in the whole relationship department. But I was going to.
Think so?
Well, and I was going to clarify that this is coming from a man who is now currently engaged. So.
Yeah, I don't see any red flag. I mean, we had a lot of people date and break up and for a while and get back together.
But like waiting on an answer from someone during a movie seems like a jarring experience for someone trying to get through their dating life. But it worked out. That is a very remarkable, incredible story.
Yeah, it was like, is this going to just be a time we hung out, or would it be our first date? And it ended up being our first date.
Cool. All right. Well, speaking of which, I feel like at the end of the movie, it might have it would have felt more natural for like Violet and Tony to have just gone on their date and left the rest of the family to go off on their crime fighting.
That's what I was hoping. Oh, you make such a good point. It would have been, they all do that. The camera pans as each one of them looks at each other. And then she's like, no, stop, pull over, just let us out. I wanted her to just go and like, do the date, not even, but she did say she'll be back before the previews are over. So
yeah, exactly. It wasn't as if she was just going to skip out on the date. So it kind of worked. All right. Well, everyone, warm hugs all around, and stay tuned for our Frozen Corner at the end of this episode. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. So I'm happy I didn't have to resort to YouTube to watch the Frozen bits from Kingdom Hearts 3. I caught you at just the right time.
Yeah, that was quite fortuitous. That was destiny.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you would have texted me anyways once you got you probably would.
Well, let's see, what was my thought process? I'm like, this is probably the only thing Philip's really interested in. And like I'm playing the game in your house in, full view, and I want to I don't want to just get it over with, but I want to go through it pretty quickly. I had beaten the Tangled world and the Toy Story world, and then not all in one sitting, but then evening came and you walked in the door and I had just landed on Arendelle. I was like, well, all right, there is a God. Time to go. And I had no idea what to expect from it. Typically in a Kingdom Hearts Disney world, the character or Sora and his friends land at the beginning of the narrative of the respective film and interact with the characters as they go about a much abbreviated version of the plot from their film. And that is so far proven true in Kingdom Hearts 3, except not Toy Story. Toy Story was a whole new thing. But you land and you watch, you land on a frozen beach and watch as ice films over the lake, and you see Elsa skating away from Castle Arendelle, and you decide to make chase. That's where we begin. So Philip, what did you think of Frozen in Kingdom Hearts 3?
It was great. And I mean, I want to check out the rest of the game too at some point. I still need to beat Kingdom Hearts 2.
Did you play the first one?
I've beaten the first one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't want to, the thing is we don't have the PS3 copy of Kingdom Hearts 2 here. And I want that so I can just start where I left off on the PS3. We have the PS4 version. I don't want to have to go through all that beginning nonsense.
I'll go through it for you.
Well, if you want to, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, because I was replaying Kingdom Hearts 1, got stuck on Atlantica, and then just said, I can't, I don't know, ain't nobody got time for this. But I would love to keep going. No, I need to finish the first one, which we do have on PS3, and then I do want to go through Kingdom Hearts 2 on the PS4 version, or at least get up to that point.
But yeah, seeing the Frozen level on Kingdom Hearts 3 does make me want to play the game.
Did it?
And get to it again. Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was like watching the plot of the film just with sort of alternate sequences. But it was great. I mean, it's just a total nerd out for me to see new dialogue from the Frozen actors. They got all the actors back. Kristen Bell, Idina Menzel, Jonathan Groff.
What? No, I thought you said they didn't.
No, they did. Yeah. What? What made you think that? No, I told you. Remember, they got Josh Gad, of course, as Olaf, and they didn't get Hans. Hans has no dialogue.
Right.
Well, you do see him.
Well, you were sitting there on IMDb and you were like, yeah, this person's a Broadway actress, or this person, and you were like, I really like Elsa's voice. That whole time I was getting the impression that these were different actors. No. Except for Josh Gad. Olaf was obviously Josh Gad. You're kidding me. That was Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel.
Because they are Broadway actors. All the voice actors in Frozen are Broadway actors.
Okay.
Kristen Bell, she's been
Really?
on Broadway, even though she's more famous now for film work.
You were the one checking the facts, and all I remember from our short communication over it was I somehow got the impression that it was not the same actors, but I apologize for that.
Since when has Kingdom Hearts not gotten the original actors, unless they're like dead, or it's Tom Hanks?
Or it's Tom Hanks. Well, that's a really good point. I don't know. Back in the old days, it seemed like it was pretty half and half. Or
I guess, or Robin
Robin
Williams. Yeah, they didn't get Robin Williams. But
I don't think they got the original Jack Skellington.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, they didn't get Danny Elfman to come in to the booth for the video game. It seems like they could have, but they probably just had a double that did just as well. But yeah, like and of course the Genie and Woody do have actors established doing the roles in other projects besides Kingdom Hearts as well. So they just kind of got their backup performers to play both of those roles.
Well, that makes it an even extra nerd out, because it's just so cool to visit a film that you love, but it's kind of like a dream, where like you're dreaming about the movie, but then you enter it, and all of a sudden these characters they break out of their film going on rails trajectory to like interact with this new curiosity. It's like, oh, Sora, Donald, Goofy, who are you? And they say new dialogue. They're like still going on their same adventure, but in new ways. And
I mean,
it's really charming.
This was a bizarre scenario because they just directly lifted the song "Let It Go" from the movie soundtrack, and
that came out of nowhere for me.
It was awesome. I enjoyed it, but I mean, I immediately recognized the scene focusing on Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and then the piano riff starts playing from the movie.
Yeah. The opening piano riff playing with Goofy's face squinting and snow billowing in his ears is just aesthetic perfection. Like,
and I could tell it was directly from the soundtrack. It wasn't a reorchestrated or arrangement. It was the original recording.
And some of the animation was ripped possibly straight from the film.
I mean, some of the snow, like with the creation of like the staircase bridge, looked very convincing. It looked kind of like the original, but
especially after we now know from recording the podcast that it took 128 hours to render that scene. I just can't imagine these game creators redoing all that.
I think it probably all was remade for the game.
I could tell that the character she was like a lot of her animation was, but
I don't know. I mean, I thought the castle, you could sort of see some of the seams as far as I could tell, that weren't quite up to the fidelity of the film.
Yeah, it's a bit simpler, a bit blander. I mean, it still looks great, but just not all at the same level of detail. But.
Yeah, video game quality. But just surprising that they. I mean, it was probably done as like a demo at first, and then they were like, "Oh, let's just throw it into the game."
Should I fact check?
I don't know. It's not a big deal.
No. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know if maybe one new revelation from the game. Like there was a line where Anna says she barely saw Elsa growing up, and that's not necessarily canonical, but just provides some insight. I mean, the two of them. So there were 10 years between Elsa's or Anna's memory wipe and the parents being killed. So those 10 years would have been kind of things kind of going on business as usual, but Elsa just being more closed off. And there's just the question as to how closed off was she during those years, how much interaction.
You got a lot of Elsa talking about herself in the Kingdom Hearts mission. Like, because Sora confronts her and is like, "Why are you running away?" And so she
Mm-hmm.
has this opportunity to really like express what she's feeling, the isolation and the fear, and I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to hurt
Mhm.
anyone. She kind of
very
says that out loud.
very simple dialogue, but
Yeah.
it was nice to hear her voice. She has so few lines in the movie. Just, but yeah, I mean, Idina Menzel is just great. As like her speaking lines are, wonderfully delivered, and she's got just such an appealing voice, I feel.
It was really kind of rusty. Well, sultry. That's rusty. Sultry.
No,
is the
yeah.
word.
yeah. No, and she has sort of a femme fatale rasp almost.
Contrasted.
But she sounds very youthful, and she's got kind of that razor sharp pitch to her voice that
ice.
Yeah.
Huh.
It just kind of cuts to the bone. Yeah, I had fun. A lot of hack and slash gameplay, and Marshmallow was the toughest boss in the game up to that point.
The toughest boss I've encountered, and this is why I'm glad I don't go on Reddit, because I don't want to find out how much of a noob I am. But I was like not having a problem with any bosses in the game until out of nowhere, Mr. Marshmallow Man just dominates me 5 times in a row, and and then he ends up being your companion for the rest of the level. That was amazing. Because he's so big and helps you fight a giant ice wolf. So I really bonded with that character. Now he's probably my favorite character in Frozen.
Well, no other characters became your companion either during the level.
No, I would have assumed Kristoff and even Anna or Elsa at one point, because Elsa can do ice magic, which is cute. I can do ice and fire and thunder, but whatever. Yeah, I thought, because fighting alongside Elsa would be BA. I'm really curious, because in the earlier games, you go to each world twice. And so far, these missions have seemed longer than the original missions in the first 2 games. And there might be more worlds than in the earlier games, but I will be curious if we do go back and what and then maybe get a chance to fight alongside Elsa then. The Marshmallow Man's connection to Elsa was really touching. It was much more than I would have expected from simply a conjured familiar. He, looked out over the mountains in her direction and just says, "Elsa," so mournfully. And you're like, oh man, there's a real connection here.
Yeah. It's the kind of the overarching theme of the film, the sentimental bonds between people who are connected through
Which is
love.
The overarching theme of Kingdom Hearts, but
times
100 and over sentimental and overly childish and naive and innocent. But
well, it was the right choice for the game to include Frozen. Well, it's a little taste and a little teaser of what's to come later in the year. So this has been our little Frozen corner. I don't know, is that what I'll call these tags at the end? Yeah, Frozen corner.
Yeah, I like that. We're free. The Frozen corner.
All right.
Oh boy! Have a magical day, everyone!